Hello, everybody. This is James Walker. I'm a political reporter for The National, and this is my colleague Adam.
Hi, folks. How you doing? How you getting on, James? You all right?
Yeah, doing very well, doing very well. It's obviously the first day of SNP conference today. It's a big conference, and I'm in Glasgow, but you're in Edinburgh at the Edinburgh International Conference Centre. For the first day, I'll be joining in a couple of days' time,
Yeah.
but I'm home steadying the ship for the moment. But I was wanting to speak to you, Adam, just to hear about your thoughts today. First of all, arriving in the morning, what was the atmosphere and how has that changed throughout the day?
Yeah, so when myself and Xander, one of our other political reporters, arrived this morning, the internal election review, which was led by John Swinney, that had already started, and that was behind closed doors. So when we arrived, it was relatively quiet because everyone was in there. And then about, I can't quite remember what time actually. I think it was after midday they started to kind of funnel out, and managed to speak to a few MPs, former MPs on their way out. There's a piece on the website about that now. People like Tommy Shepherd and Philippa Whitford as well, and Deirdre Brock. And I think on the whole, James, they felt quite positive. I think obviously they said to me themselves there was some harsh truths said in there about the party's performance at the last election. So I don't think people were shy of voicing their criticisms. But I also spoke with one thing that Philippa Whitford said to me was that I think she felt there was some people going into it who thought it was going to be quite dismal, but actually I think she said it was more constructive would be the word that she used, and she actually suggested to me that she thinks that every year conference should have an event like that. Obviously it can't respond to an election every year, but just to sort of reflect on what the party membership feels it's done right and wrong, and just give them a chance to voice their concerns and to know that the leadership has listened to them. The whole media sort of team here spoke very briefly with Stephen Flynn after as well. He came in and again he said he was feeling quite positive. He said that he certainly felt that it was a kind of first step looking forward to 2026 and that people should have reason to feel positive for that as well. So yeah, this was obviously the kind of big event today, and I think as far as we can tell, it was as positive as they're going to say it is. Obviously, we don't really know a huge amount about what actually went on in terms of the more specifics because it was
to be a fly
yeah, very much so. But yeah, and then I think James, do you want to tell people a little bit about Keith Brown's speech? Because I myself was away for that. He was the kind of big speech today at 2:00, and then we've got Stephen Flynn and Swinney over the weekend.
Yeah, so I that was for me a bit of a surprise of the day. Obviously, we weren't gonna hear we weren't there in situ for the big election review, and I say big conference because it is. Maybe wouldn't go as far as a crossroads when it comes to this conference, but it's certainly a big conference in that some of those decisions have to be made if the party is going to rebuild and have a more positive election come 2026 in the Hollywood elections. But yeah, I think the biggest surprise for me, and of course, this is one of those things where it's a throwaway comment, and to what extent that's actually going to become a reality is a whole different question. But Keith Brown was said in his speech that he was open to an indie convention, essentially extending an olive branch to other indie parties going into 2026, Alba or the Scottish Greens. So I'm really interested to see what happens with that going onwards. But Adam, one thing I wanted to ask as well, before I've got another question about fringe events, but before we do that, I've personally never been to the Edinburgh International Conference Centre before, and I think a lot of our listeners, maybe a lot of them will have been to SNP conference before. Maybe some of them haven't, and how would you how would you describe the atmosphere more generally, like the stands and everything? I understand that there's obviously a lot of chatter, that a lot of members are getting back together after a long time. Maybe they haven't seen each other since last conference.
Yeah. No, I mean, it certainly seems like quite positive when you come in this morning. I think this is also the first time that I've actually attended a conference. I know it's normally in Aberdeen, so this is my first time at SNP conference, and yeah, there's a lot of different representatives here, different stalls, things that you just wouldn't expect to find here. There's the Scottish Professional Football League, I believe, are here as well. I can't quite remember the specific organisation, but they're here. There's a lovely guide dog charity as well, which was a good start to the morning. If there is anyone here that is actually at conference and watching us, I would definitely recommend going to say hello to the guide dogs. You've obviously got various charities, Cancer Research and Marie Curie, organisations like that are here as well. So yeah, there's definitely a lot going on. I think I think people might think of, people that aren't here, they might think of a party conference and think of just the kind of everyone in a room discussing bits of policy and whatnot. And to a certain extent, that is what happens. But there is also a lot of other elements going on as well.
Of course, and there's obviously a social element to it as well, which I'm
Yeah,
sure we're getting into right now. But moving on. So, I mean, some people that may be listening perhaps watched the live stream and, you know, would have seen a lot of the stuff that went on in the main hall. But of course, that's not all that happens. You mentioned obviously the stalls. There's obviously also the fringe events, and you know, in these fringe events, especially since it's less sort of it's more organic, I guess, and it's you know, it's away from the cameras, but it's not away from some prying reporters. So what was your pick of the fringe events today, Adam?
Yeah, so I was originally meant to go to two fringe events. The first one was about 12:30 and focused on fuel poverty. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it because it was just around about the time that Stephen Flynn came out and was speaking to the media. So I had to go and speak to him, and unfortunately didn't get to attend that. I did, however, go to a event from Believe in Scotland that was arranged by, I believe, the SNP Peter Headbranch, forgive me if I've got that wrong, where they sort of outlined what they believe is a kind of 3-step route to independence. Gordon McIntyre-Kemp was there, and he gave the main speech, and then there was various other representatives from Yes groups giving their thoughts as well, and responding to questions from the audience. And it was chaired by Karen Adam, the MSP. She's up in the northeast, so it was great to speak to her after as well. Again, I think the kind of biggest thing that the biggest sort of word that seems to be getting used here is just feedback, and I think it's a chance for the SNP and MPs, MSPs, whoever it might be, to hear back from members and to take on feedback about what they feel needs to be done. And I think, as Karen Adams said to me, you kind of can't put a price on that, really. Those were her words. So yeah, that was one fringe event. Fringe event. Xander was also at one that was more eventful, I believe, this afternoon. He has a great piece over on our website at thenational.scot about Angela Constance, so I would recommend everyone goes and checks that out as well. And there'll be plenty more tomorrow. I think looking forward to the weekend, there is one on there's a Palestine event tomorrow, so SNP Friends for Palestine are here, and they have a fringe event. I believe that our colleague Lucy is going to an event tomorrow on 25 years of devolution. So I think Jamie Hepburn's at that, so we'll see what that brings as well. Pete Wisher at the SNP MP, he's also launching his book here on Sunday, so we'll probably head along to that as well. And if you head over to the SNP's website, the full sort of fringe agenda is there for anyone that wants to look at the full list. But yeah, definitely plenty going on, and we'll see what happens over the weekend. Obviously, still the big speeches in terms of Stephen Flynn and John Swinney are still to come.
No, certainly. Thank you, Adam. And as we were saying, there are 2 more days left, and there's plenty of content already on the National.Scot website, and there's plenty more to come. But thank you for your time, Adam. I'll let you get back to it. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, James. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye, folks.